again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show where we dive deep into classes, subclasses, and other features so that you can get the most out of your choices for your characters. So today, my last video was about feats and how they can be used to create some really unique, customized characters. Yeah, we're just going to continue with that. We got through basically to 2 pages, or a page and a half, because one of the pages is half of it is a picture of feats. We're going to just dive right into the next set of feats, so I can hopefully get through another to 2 full pages. This is the time. So first things first, we're going to start off with Grappler. Grappler's another one, has a prereq, which is a strength of the 13 or higher. And this is one of my few gripes about 5th edition, specifically the rules on grappling. In order to grapple a target, you do what's called a skill contest, where what it is you use your strength athletics, and they get to roll against that using either their strength athletics or their dexterity acrobatics, which I'm fine with that part. However, as someone who has studied martial arts for 2 decades, I can tell you right now, strength is useful if you are grappling someone. It is not the end all be all. I have seen people that are significantly smaller with significantly less muscle mass grapple successfully people twice their size. So your knowledge of mechanics of the body and anatomy, and just where you put pressure and things like that, is just as important as being able to physically overpower your opponent. So I personally think you should be able to use dexterity acrobatics to grapple, just like you can use it to escape from a grapple. So with that in mind, understand that Grappler is designed for strength-based characters, and because of that, the way it works will be heavily influenced by just being the bigger, stronger person. So, as far as usefulness, this one is one of the really unique skills that I never see anyone to take, simply because if you look at some of the downsides to it, it doesn't seem to make a ton of sense, especially since not a lot of people grapple in combat. Again, it generally has to do with the fact that grappling will to take one of your attack and one of your attacks if you have extra attack, or it will just take your action, and that means you can't cast a spell, you can't make an attack roll, you can't do any damage to them. All you can do is grapple them. And so a lot of people kind of view grappling as a waste of time, because all you do is you reduce their speed to 0. Which again, when you're thinking about it from a controller's perspective, which I've mentioned many times before, the idea of controlling where the enemies are, controlling the battlefield from a tactical perspective, being able to choose where your enemies are on the battlefield is significantly important, as is being able to choose where your opponents aren't. And that's what Grappler does. So The first thing it does, you have advantage on attack rolls against a creature you are grappling. This, I think, is probably the most useful aspect of Grappler, because again, if you are something like a fighter where you're getting 3 or 4 attacks per turn, plus an action surge if you need it, or something like a monk, despite the fact that monks tend to be dex based, you can have um, strength be an okay stat on a monk. Generally, it's never going to be as high as your dex and wisdom, because you need those for your AC, and you need wisdom for all your saving throws, or your spell save DC. Sorry. Um, you can build, a monk with like a 13 or 14 strength to take advantage of this. And the ability to just run up to someone, grab them, and then pummel them, and get advantage in all the attacks is really useful. Especially, I tend to lean a little bit more towards the fighter, or even like barbarian. With if you go berserker barbarian, where you can get that extra bonus action at attack. Um, Except that barbarians already have reckless attack for advantage. But if you don't want to put yourself out there, this can be really, really useful, because once you grapple them, to break a grapple, you have to use your action to do it, or get some sort of forced movement. So that, on one part, that's already action economy manipulation, where you're making them use one of their actions to get rid of you. And if you have the grapple for, even if you only have the grapple for maybe two turns or something, having one turn where you only sacrifice one attack and then all the rest to have advantage, and then a second turn where all your attacks have advantage against this, is really good. It increases your chance to crit. If you have a magic weapon or a spell cast on you that does additional damage when you hit, like Hunter's Mark, or something like that, that is really, really useful. It does mean that you have to have a hand free in order to grapple them. But yeah, there's the duelist fighting style, which is specifically designed to have a weapon in one hand and then nothing, or a shield in the other. Just forget the shield, and you can just go grappling crazy. Which is, again, it's really, really useful. The second thing you get is you can use your action to try and pin a creature grappled by you. To do so, make another grapple check. If you succeed, you and the creature are both restrained until the grapple ends. This is where people start to say, well, I don't like this, because restrained and grappled are similar, but restrained adds more things. If you are restrained, attacks against you have advantage. Attacks you make have disadvantage. And it can be really, really useful. But if you have to restrain yourself in order to restrain another character, it can create issues, because you're now basically making yourself have advantage to anyone else that wants to try and attack you, which sucks. It does mean that it's kind of a wash for you, because you have disadvantage because you're restrained on an attack, but you have advantage because they're restrained. So it's just straight rolls for you. However, the entire rest of your team now has advantage on attacks against this person. So again, from a purely self-focused standpoint, this seems like a huge waste of time, because if you just grapple them, you have advantage on all your attack rolls. If you waste an action, a full action, not just an attack, but if you waste a full action restraining them, well, you've wasted your turn. and the bad guys can just take pot shots at you because you're giving off advantage for that. However, when you look at it from a team perspective, yeah, there's a chance that you're going to get hit a little bit more because you're an easy to target. But your entire party can focus fire this guy until he's gone, and once he's out, the grapple ends. So there's a good chance that your party, with the increased crit chance, the increased chance to hit, can take this guy out before you take too many hits, anyways. And so from a tactical standpoint, really useful in certain situations. Yeah, a lot of people avoid this specifically because that's the second section. But if you build your character around the idea of being a grappler, like I said, fighters work really well with this because of all the attacks they get. And you build yourself to be able to take a few hits. This can be a fantastic addition to, especially to something like a ranged focus team where you only have one or two melee people and everyone else just sits back and nukes people. This can be fantastic. Next one up. This is by far the most used feat I've seen in the game, other than maybe sharpshooter, which we may get to today. It depends on how long this goes. Great weapon master. If you've watched Critical Role, this is Series 1. This was one of Grog's things that he always used. If you have ever played with a barbarian, half the fighters take this, paladins to take this. Really, any melee class can take this. Basically, what it is you get to two benefits that are just crazy good in combat, especially at low levels. If you're human and take Great Weapon Master as your starting feat, you can plow through most tier 1 content because the enemies simply don't have enough hit points to survive attacks made with Great Weapon Master, and their AC tends to be a little low enough that the drawbacks don't really affect you. To the point where I've had DMs that have flat out said that they hate this feat at low level tables because you can one shot literally just about anything with it. So let's actually to talk about what it does. The first thing you get is on your turn, when you score a critical hit with a melee weapon or reduce a creature to 0 hit points with one, you can make one melee weapon attack as a bonus action. This is actually taken from earlier editions. There was a feat called Cleave, which basically meant that if you attacked and killed a creature, and you had the cleave feat, you could immediately make another attack against an adjacent creature, basically giving you extra attacks. There was an upgraded version of it called Improved Cleave, that would allow you to do that as many times as there were enemies that dropped around you. The original feat would only let you do it once, but with Improved Cleave, if you went into like a group of like kobolds or something, and you killed one, you could literally just go around the entire group, and as long as you kept killing them each time, you could make 4 or 5 attacks in a single round through Cleave. So that's where that first one comes from. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think I have seen anyone use this aspect of Great Weapon Master more than maybe a couple times in like 5 or 6 years, maybe 7 now. I don't know. The years that I've been DMing, I don't see people use that very often at all. Like I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen it. The second one is the one that low-level DMs hates, and that everyone takes this for. Before you make a melee attack with a heavy weapon that you are proficient with, you can choose to take a -5 penalty to the attack roll. If the attack hits, you add +10 to the attack's damage. And now you can see why this could become problematic. If you're using a great axe or a great sword, their maximum damage is 12, with the great axe itself having a much better chance of rolling to 12 damage than the great sword, because it uses 2d6. And statistically, rolling double sixes is significantly harder to do than just rolling a 12 on a d12. But yeah, you can do without your ability score modifier bonus, you can do 22 damage with a single attack at level 1, which is crazy. When you combine this with extra attack that a lot of classes get, this becomes game defining. You can absolutely demolish people with this ability, because +10 to the attack's damage is a lot of damage, and that's why this is so often used, because it's just extra damage. The -5 to its attack rolls really is not that big a deal. Like I said, at low levels, the AC just isn't high enough for it to matter. At low levels, the -5 basically means you're making flat rolls, because generally your attack bonus would be +5. However, tier 2, it can make you miss sometimes. Once you get to tier 3, your attack bonuses generally are high enough that this isn't even causing that much of an issue. And you have a lot of other ways to get advantage, like through that grappler feat we talked about before. There's a lot of other ways to get advantage to where it really doesn't affect your hit percentage that much, but it does affect your damage potential, especially if you're using it 2 or 3 times in a single round. That's an extra 30 damage. So I don't really need to sell Great Weapon Master to you. Everybody uses it. It's an extremely useful technique. But because it's so useful and so simple to use, I think a lot of people put emphasis on this as the best melee feat, when it really isn't. It's good, don't get me wrong, but there's other feats you can take that will give you just as useful abilities. They just don't translate to direct numbers to damage like Great Weapon Master. So yeah, the next one, and this one is another one that's really, really underutilized and shouldn't be, because it's massively useful, and that is Healer, which sounds like a weird feat to take, but it's super, super useful. So it gives you two things. In order to understand this, you need to understand how an item that nobody uses in 5th edition works, which is the Healer's Kit. It's a 15 gold kit that you can get. It comes with, I believe it's 8 uses. It's either 6 or 8 uses. And what it does is, if you use the Healer's Kit on someone who is dying, meaning they're making death saving rolls, you can stabilize them, meaning they are just at 0 hit points, and they don't have to make any death saves anymore. It also erases any successes and failures that they had. So using a Healer's Kit on someone who's already made 2 failed death saves can literally save their life, because they immediately stop making the death saves, and if they do get hit again for whatever reason and have to start making the death saves again, you've just reset their death saves and made it that much more likely they're not going to die. So that's how a Healer's Kit works without any feats. With feats, with the healer feat, when you use a healer's kit to stabilize a dying creature, the creature also regains 1 hit point, which is a massive difference. Being stabilized into 0 hit points means you're not dying. Having 1 hit point means you are immediately conscious again, which means you can actually do things to affect the battle. 1 hit point doesn't sound like a lot, but if it gives you an additional action for your team, an additional bonus action, it can make a massive change. Even if right after that character's turn, they immediately go unconscious again, it still means you've added an action to your side's action economy. That's massive. And it took a 15 gold item that you get multiple uses out of. So yeah, it's massively useful. The only downside is you have to be right next to them, and it uses your action to do it. So you're kind of making a trade-off, but still, if you're bringing up your cleric, that might mean someone else is getting a major heal. If you're bringing up your wizard, it might mean that the entire enemy party is getting nuked with a fireball or a firestorm or something like that. So it can be massively useful, especially for classes that don't that tend to be a little bit more support focused. Like bards are in 5th edition. They tend to be because they're full spellcasters. They tend to be kind of treated a little bit more like wizards and sorcerers, where they're supposed to be using their spells to do mass damage and stuff like that, which they can do. You can build a caster bard that does some cool stuff. But having them be able to go over, bring somebody up without using one of their spell slots they might want to use for something else, or if you've got multiple people down, a bard can cast Healing Word as a bonus action to bring someone up, then use this healer's kit to bring another person up, which you can't do with magic. And you can't do really any other way than force feeding someone a potion, which is significantly more costly. A single potion of healing costs 50 gold, and anything larger than that cost a lot more. So in that on that side, it can be incredibly useful, especially if you have a character that can still get a lot of use out of their bonus action. The second thing you can do with this, as an action, you can suspend one use of a healer's kit to tend to a creature and restore 1d6 plus 4 hit points to it, plus additional hit points equal to the creature's maximum number of hit dice. The creature can't regain hit points from this feat again until it finishes their short or long rest. Another super useful healing ability. Your maximum hit dice basically means your overall character level, which is good. Which also means that using a healer's kit, again, a cheap item with multiple uses, can heal more than like a second or third level cure wounds. And it takes the same action to do it, but you're not wasting spell slots, and you're getting a lot more guaranteed healing. With things like cure wounds and that, you're rolling a lot of dice, and then you'll add a small modifier like +2, +4, so something like that. With this, you're getting +4 off the bat, plus basically their character level. So a 10th level character will get a minimum of 14 hit points off this, plus a d6. So, yeah, it can be massively useful if you want to be that support healing character, to have this feat and just keep a couple healer's kits on you. Again, they have a lot of uses, so it's not like you need to stock 20 healers kit. Having 2 or 3 will be more than enough for anyone. Um, and it's for free hit points. You're not wasting spell slots. The only thing you're quote unquote wasting is an action. And yeah, you can't do it to the same character twice without them taking a short rest. But a short rest is not that difficult to get when you need it. So, yeah. Again, if you build your character to incorporate these feats into them, you can have really powerful, useful characters designed around you using these feats. Um, Next one is heavily armored. This is one I think this is the first armor proficiency feat, and there's two different kinds of armor feats. This first one simply gives you proficiency with heavy armor. The first thing it does increase your strength score by 1 to a maximum of 20. Again, useful if you have like that 13 or 15 and you want to get it up to an even number so you get the bonus. You do have to have proficiency with medium armor, so you don't have like wizards that just take this feat at level 1 and now are casting in full plate or something like that. You do need to be proficient in medium armor, but you get your strength score improved, and then you get proficiency with heavy armor. Again, this is another one that I never see you used because most classes are kind of built to work with the armor they have. Like wizards get mage armor, monks and barbarians get alternate ways to calculate their armor class. And wearing heavy armor imposes disadvantages on stealth. So, like a rogue in heavy armor doesn't make a ton of sense. So there are some very specific instances where you can make some really interesting characters that use heavy armor, like basically like a ranger to taking this. You can kind of make a nature paladin out of them because they have all this nature magic and this is super awesome plate mail. So again, I think this one's a little bit more limited, but again, this is designed for that person that wants to make a really unique character idea. I think this one takes a little bit more planning than a lot of the other ones to be useful, but can still be really useful. To give you an example of when you wouldn't want to do this, something like a blade singer is a martial wizard. However, most of the blade singers' abilities, you lose, like their blade song and that, if you're wearing anything heavier than, I think it's just medium armor. It may be a little light armor. I can't remember off the top of my head. So even taking this feat, as long as you're proficient in it, you can cast in armor in 5th edition. But for a blade singer who could benefit from the higher AC, they would lose all of the things that make them a blade singer by taking this feat. So for that, it wouldn't work. So I guess what I'm saying, pick your poison. If you're going to use one of these things where you actually get a new proficiency, just look at the character and plan, because a lot of times, like barbarians lose a lot of their abilities when they're wearing heavy armor, stuff like that. So the second kind of armor feat just adds extra abilities to your proficiency. The next one is called Heavy Armor Master. You have to be proficient in heavy armor. So those two feats can actually go together. If you want. But what they do, again, the first thing you get, increase your strength score by 1 up to a maximum of 20. So again, a nice way to get that odd number to an even. But the second one is where this really shines. When you are wearing heavy armor, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage that you take from non-magical weapons is reduced by 3. This can be really, really major at higher levels. The reason being, most enemies don't use magic weapons. Like stat blocks for monsters don't use magic weapons. So the idea that they had to mention that it can't be from magic weapons, it doesn't really happen that often. However, what they do at higher levels is they give most creatures multi-attack, where their attacks don't do that much more damage individually. What they do is they just get a lot more attacks. And with this reducing the damage by 3 on every attack, if you've got a creature that makes the 3 attacks, you've just reduced the overall damage they can do by 9. If you have a whole team that's just unloading on your character, every single attack is reduced by the 3. So you get hit for 5 times. That's 15 damage you've just avoided. Can be incredibly useful if you're playing that kind of sword and board, meat shield kind of character, because you're flat out just getting rid of the damage that they do. Now, again, it only works on bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, basically physical damage. If you're fighting a wizard or something, this feat is going to do nothing for you. But due to the fact that even in a high-level play, you're not facing that many spellcasters, and most spellcasters will have minions that do physical damage, because of things like a counter spell and enemy wizards and that. Incredibly useful ability. Next up is Inspiring Leader. This one has another prereq. It's Charisma 13 or higher. This is, again, another ability that I've seen used more often than, like, Healer. But a lot of people kind of undervalue it, and I don't really know why. Basically, you can spend 10 minutes inspiring your companion, shoring up their resolve to fight. When you do so, choose up to 6 friendly creatures, which can include yourself, within the 30 feet of you, who can see or hear you, and who can understand you. Each creature gains temporary hit points equal to your level plus your charisma modifier, and they can't get more until they finish a short or long rest. This is, from a role-playing perspective, this is an awesome feat. Mostly because you get to be, you know, the guy that gives the St. Crispin's Day speech, or which is Henry V, if you're not familiar with Shakespeare. You can give this as a St. Crispin's Day speech. You can give the Independence Day speech. You know, you can be the guy that before the final fight, when everything is against them, they sit down and they go, you know, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he who shed blood with me this day will be my brother, be he ne'er so vile. You know, I mean, it's this really cool thing where before big battle, you can go, friends, lend me your ears. And you can give this inspiring speech that actually gives them a buffer of temp hit points, which can be a big deal. That can absorb, especially at higher levels when you're above level 10. If you have 20 charisma, which is very likely, if you're taking this feat, you probably have a high charisma. That means you've got 15 hit points of buffer. And that can be a single attack. If one of you guys have a heavy armor master, that might be a couple attacks that you just get to null and void. With the fact that You can use this on up to 6 creatures. 6 times 15 is 90 hit points that you throughout your party have just mitigated. That is more than the most powerful cure wounds you're going to be able to cast. And when you look at it from a perspective of, because a lot of people go, well, you know, charisma modifier plus your that's nothing. That's just a single attack. Yeah, but when you spread it out around a team of 5 versus 6 players, that's a lot of hit points. And it's for free. Doesn't cost us a spell slot. It happens before you get into combat, so you're not ruining your action economy. It does require a little bit of planning, but massively useful to start off battle with a 90 hit point or higher than that, depending on your level. Advantage in hit points over your opponent. And all you have to do is make an inspiring speech, which is a cool thing to do before a fight. Yeah, really fun. Next one, Keen Mind. You have a mind that can track time, direction, and detail with uncanny precision. You gain the following benefits. Increase your intelligence score by 1 to a maximum of 20. Again, if you have that odd number, nice one to just give you some extra benefits while getting your bonus. You always know which way is north. You always know the number of hours left before the next sunrise or sunset. You can accurately recall anything you have seen or heard within the past month. This is one that, again, I very rarely see used. And yet is another one that can be incredibly useful if the player themselves has a keen mind. When you think about the idea of knowledge is power, keen mind can be incredibly useful for a bookworm type character or an intelligence like spying type character, because they can spend most of their downtime reading books or going around and listening to gossip and stuff, and then when they get to a fight or something, they can just go to the DM, go, hey, I can accurately recall anything I've seen or heard within the past month. What do I know about this? And get just a flood of information that the player doesn't actually have to remember. They just have to know that, oh, I can use this ability to remember, oh, I read about this particular monster when we were preparing to go into this biome. So I know everything about this character, or this creature. I know its weaknesses, I know its resistances, the things like that. Without having to roll some nature check or anything, you just know it. And from a role-playing perspective, it can be a lot of fun to be the one that has perfect recollection of the things. And this can be really useful for players like me, where I don't take good notes because of my own issues. And my memory is Swiss cheese. So with this, I can go, well, I may, as a player, I may be bad at this, but my characters are really good. So I can actually rely technically on other players' notes and things like that, and even the DM's notes, instead of having to rely on my own stuff, which is a huge benefit for me. Next up is lightly armored. This is, again, one of those armor proficiency ones. You can increase your strength or dex score, since light armor can go either way. By 1 to a maximum to 20, you gain proficiency in light armor. This one I tend to see you used a little bit more than like the heavy armor one, simply because there's quite a few classes that don't get light armor proficiency. A lot of spellcasting classes that can actually benefit from wearing leather armor, this is studded leather armor, just for those couple extra points of AC, or so that they can wear some magic armors, because you're generally not going to find magic cloth armor. You'll find robes and things like that. But there's a lot of magic cloth armor, or magic light armor, that most casters can't even wear. So that one I see used fairly often. There really isn't a ton of drawbacks to wearing light armor versus no armor, unless, like I said, you're like a monk, where you need to be wearing no armor to get benefits from your class. Linguist is one that I've seen used, and I've seen it used really, really effectively in one of my own games. But again, it's one that you kind of have to, I guess, plan a little bit around, and you have to really be into role play for it to be good. But basically, increase your intelligence as a score by 1. So you learn the 3 languages of your choice, which a lot of people just kind of write down random languages, and don't really worry about them. But when you're playing a game, especially the games I like to run, where there's a lot of mystery and intrigue, my players regularly will come across things written in languages that they don't speak, like celestial or abyssal, the things like that can mean some really, really powerful stuff. But if you have no one that speaks that language, there's nothing they can do. It's just gibberish to them. So this can be massively useful, especially for a spy roguish type character, because this is another thing that people often overlook, is just how powerful knowledge of the enemy is. If your rogue can kind of sneak and spy on maybe the goblins or the giants that you're about to fight, and can listen to what they're saying, you can get a massive edge on the bad guys, to the point where you can actually avoid some combat if you can just hear what they're saying and make decisions based on that. So using this to just get extra languages that you generally wouldn't pick, like Goblin or Undercommon, the things like that, can be massively useful. The other thing you get from this is you can ably create written ciphers. Others can't decipher a code you could create unless you teach them. They succeed on intelligence check. DC equals intelligence plus your proficiency, which is wrong because there should be a 8 plus 8 in there, so somewhere. Or they use magic to decipher it. I think there's got to be a update on that, because just as DC equals your intelligence score plus your proficiency bonus, which would make it less than 10, which isn't how these ever work. Written ciphers, again, this is super, super useful for my role-playing perspective. You can leave your party notes that no one but your party can read, which can also mean your party can deceive people in what they are reading. Like if they get a note from their linguist, they can go, oh, this is our secret code. It says this, and this, and that we need to wait in this spot that looks like it could be perfect for an ambush, but it's totally not, because that's what the note says, is we should wait in this spot that's supposed to be perfect for an ambush. So yeah, guys that have captured us that we obviously are not trying to escape from, you should sit in this spot that's perfect for an ambush, because you just figured out our secret code by interrogating us, and you'll have the upper hand. Wink, wink. Yeah, there's endless amounts of fun with that. Next, the other unbelievably always used for feat. Everybody loves this feat. Liam O'Brien's character in season 1 had this feat and used it constantly. It is the Lucky Feats. Lucky is the basics of it. You get 3 luck points a day. You can spend a luck point to re-roll a d20. And basically, the d20s you can re-roll. Any roll you make with a d20, you can use luck to re-roll. If someone makes an attack roll against you, you can also use luck to make them re-roll, possibly making them miss. Um, uh, yeah, I mean this is literally just the ability to control rolls. Um, there really isn't a way to underplay this feat. It's always useful. It doesn't matter what character class you are. Luck is always useful. Is it useful enough for you to forego another feat or getting your ability score improvement? That's going to be up to you and your plan for your character. But if you want to build, a very kind of lucky character where things just tend to work well for them, this is the feat for you. It works this is super well, and there's no real downside to this feat. I would love to say it's overused. Um, it's not really because it's massively useful. I even had a buddy of mine who's a DM actually built a character around the idea of controlling D20 rolls. The character was a Lightfoot halfling, which means they get to re-roll all their nat ones. He had the lucky feat. He also had he was a wizard that took the divination school of magic, which meant at the beginning of any day they could roll to 2d20s and just have them sitting, and anytime during the day they could replace a d20 that was rolled by anyone with one of their d20s. So if they rolled low, they could replace an attack roll against them with like a 2 or the 3 and make it miss. If they rolled high, one of their allies could just flub a roll they needed to succeed. They go, no, you actually got us a 17 on that. So throughout a day, they basically had 5 rolls that they could replace, plus all their nat ones just magically went away, being a halfling. We called it the DM killer, and he only used it on the DMs and conventions that were just being kind of jerks to their players. So he could basically rules lawyer his way into just defeating and counters and that. And it was a ton of fun. So again, if you build a character around this feat, you can piss off your DM really quickly. But you can also create really fun, interesting characters. And even if you don't build it around the lucky feat, you can. It's just a useful feat. Any class can get a benefit out of it. If you want, you just have to remember you have luck points to use. Anyway, I wanted to get through a couple pages, but that was a solid page of feats. And we're getting close to 50 minutes here. So this is where I'm going to end this one. In the comments below, did any of these feats kind of, click for you? And go, wow, I never thought to use that feat. I totally want to make a character around that, or I want to try that with this character that I'm already playing. I would love to hear either your interesting feat character ideas in the comments below, or if you've used any of these feats and you've impressed your party or impressed your DM or something with them. Let me know. I want to hear how other people are using these feats beyond just what I'm the theory crafting here. Otherwise, As always, please like the videos, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. Hit the notification bell if you want to see all the stuff that I put up. I'm trying to put up a little bit more content than I have been recently, just because I was focused on my podcast for a little bit. So yeah. Otherwise, that's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right. Bye bye.